Hello and welcome everyone to the Advocacy and Awareness Workshop. Get ready for International DM Awareness Day. I'm Kate Beck, MDF Special Projects Manager, and I will be hosting today's workshop. This session is for anyone living with any type of DM, a caregiver, family member, friend, DM professional, all are welcome. So what I want you to do is think about this question as we settle in. And I want you to write it down somewhere in your phone, on your notes app, if you have a little post-it note. Think about this question: what does the DM community need? And I want you to write it down. And then if you feel comfortable, please post it in the chat. We're going to come back to it. But I'm going to give you a moment to think about this question while I go over the session logistics. So think about this question: what does the DM community need? And think about your life, what you need or what someone with DM in your life needs. And I know we often think about cure as our destination, and that's great, but let's try to, if that's your answer, let's try to think of another one as well, so that we can have some diversity of answers here. So while you think about that, I'm just going to go over some session logistics. So today, this is kind of a workshop. I cannot see or hear you, but I can access the chat. So I want you to participate as much as possible and engage. I'm going to be asking you questions, asking you to post in the comments, raise your hand. So try to engage as much as possible, and go ahead and feel free to use the chat. Again, the hand raise function at the bottom of your video screen when I prompt you. And then finally, this session will be recorded and added to the MDF Digital Academy at myatonic.org/digital academy. Just some session objectives. So today I want to think about advocacy. I want to define it because I know it's a bit of a loose term sometimes. So we're going to try to pin down what it is, and we're going to actually break it down into some steps and think about how you can turn your ideas into results, creating your own kind of advocacy project. We're going to talk a little bit about International DM Awareness Day, which is coming up this Wednesday, September 15th. Going to give you some ideas for how to engage in that. And then we're going to hear from some of our very successful community advocates on a panel. So we have the privilege of having David and Lauren Brand here, father and daughter. They're going to share their story and talk about how they've helped contribute to the US Senate resolution to declare Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day. And then we're going to hear from Teresa Buffone, who if you tuned into this morning's session, Stories of Inspiration, you heard a little bit from her there. So we're going to hear from her again live. And then we're going to have the privilege of having a Q&A with our panelists. So you'll be able to get your burning questions answered. And finally, we're going to walk away with some actionable items, things that we can do to get involved in raising DM awareness. Okay. So let's circle back to this question. I asked you, what does the DM community need? I asked you to write these questions down for yourselves, write this question down for yourself, and asked you to share your response in the chat if you felt comfortable. So I'm just going to read some of your responses here. Let's see. Nikki says effective pain management treatments, definitely. Jeremy Kelly, better quality of life, and put a line in the sand so that my family's health does not get worse. Yeah, that's great. We have better quality of life. Yep. We have the need for insurance companies to pay for critical medications, definitely, and tests. So some overlaps there. And then definitely the need for more medical professionals to know about DM, of course. More about doctors needing to understand the disease, including specialists. Yeah, that's really important. Okay, that's great. Thank you. These are really amazing answers, and I love that we're getting answers across the board, and you guys are all thinking, creatively and concretely. So hold on to this question, hold on to your answer. We're going to come back to it again later. But in the meantime, we're going to think about what exactly advocacy is and try to define it, because it's a bit of a slippery term. I think sometimes it can feel a bit ambiguous, it can feel a bit intimidating. So I want to break it down, and then we're going to have actual steps that we can take to take our ideas and our big ideas into projects and then eventually results. So let's start with this. Who here has experience being an advocate? And I know we have 3 people in our session, at least our panelists, who are our featured advocates, but please raise your hand or leave a comment if you've had experience being an advocate for DM or otherwise. Great, I'm seeing a couple of raised hands here. I see Rob Bessaker. He climbed to the base camp of Mount Everest, so he's a pretty active guy. Martha Brown, John Cooley. We have Nikki, Jennifer Johnson. Thank you all so much. That's incredible. I'm going to follow up this question with another question. Oops, excuse me. I revealed the punchline. So who here has experience advocating to a teacher or a boss asking for accommodations? Go ahead and raise your hands. I see some new hands. Emily Fisher. Who's ever had to explain to a medical professional about DM? I think I'm going to see a lot of raised hands here. Yep. About 10 of you. Yeah. And I'm guessing even more than that. Who here has ever had to teach a friend, a coworker, a teacher, another family member about DM? Who's had to be an actual educator on DM in your community? Yeah, I'm seeing the numbers climb. Okay, that's great. Thank you all for your participation. So if you've had to do any of these things in the past, you're actually already a DM advocate, and you have experience being an advocate. So if we think about advocacy this way, on this sort of more personal scale, advocacy is really just problem solving. It's having a problem and then finding a solution for it. And it's advocacy can exist on a sliding scale of scope. So it can be something as small as, asking for accommodations in your classroom or at work. And it can be as big as helping pass a new law. And the process is essentially the same, whether you scale it up or down. So again, we're going to look at the process that you all have surely done in your lives as individuals with DM or supporting someone with DM, and then we're going to think about how to scale it up for your projects. So again, advocacy is essentially problem solving, taking in action to create or inspire a positive change. So again, even though most of you are already DM advocates, even if you didn't raise your hands, I see 23 now, 23 raised hands. We're gonna go ahead and break it down a little bit more. So first step in advocacy is establishing a goal. So that's taking a problem and deciding what you want to do about that problem. What do you want to be different? We have defining the project is the next step. So what exactly are you going to do to bring about your goal? We have the next step is actually making a plan. So what are the exact steps you're going to take to execute your vision for your project? And then we have gathering your resources. So building a team, bringing in people, raising the funds that you need to do, and then finally acting on your plan. Act and react. So we're going to go ahead and actually break this down even further, and we're going to kind of run through the details of this, because at the end of this, I want you to be able to take your ideas and turn them into projects. So step one, establish a goal. The first step, obviously, is taking a problem that you might have, a need that you might have, and then flipping it to become a goal. So for example, because we have Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day coming up on the 15th, awareness is a huge issue. You know, we want people to be more aware of myotonic dystrophy. So the problem is oftentimes people, you know, the general public doesn't know enough about myotonic dystrophy. So if we flip that into a result or a goal, our goal becomes, I want more people to know about myotonic dystrophy. And more specific we can be, the better. Oftentimes our results can be more successful if we narrow our goal. So if we're thinking about sort of an example for this, we would take, I want more people to know about DM, narrow it down to, I want more people in my community to know about DM, and then even more narrow than that. Let's say I have a daughter with myotonic dystrophy. So let's say that I want my people in my daughter's school to be aware of myotonic dystrophy so that she doesn't have to bear the burden of constantly explaining to her teachers, her coaches, her classmates, what she faces and the challenges she faces and the needs that she has. So now we've established our goal, and we want to think about how we're going to actually accomplish that goal. So defining the project, what's your vision? And this is the stage where you want to ask a lot of questions. How can I get to this goal? What's the best way to get there? And brainstorm, Google, ask your friends, you read some books. This is the time to really investigate and strategize. How can I get to my goal? What have others done before me? And then define your scope as well. This is really important. Scope, and there's this this theory called the triple constraint, where we've got scope and cost and time all related. So if you scale up in scope, you're going to have to scale up in cost and or time. And a lot of us, you know, have busy lives. So we want to think about scope, you know, fitting the amount of time and resources we actually have. So do your research and be flexible. Step 3 is to actually make a plan. So this is the phase when you want to really think about details. You want to make an action plan, and you want to narrow everything down. So think about timelines. What are the deadlines to hit? Do you have you know, exact deadlines that you need to hit and work backward from there? Think about your resources. So what kind of money do you have to put towards this? what kind of time do you have to put towards this, and what kind of manpower do you have to put towards this, and then also think about deliverables. So is there anything that you want to actually produce from this project? Maybe it's making, myotonic dystrophy awareness t-shirts. So you think about the cost that it's going to take to make those, to produce those, and the time that it takes to produce those. Think about, the number that you want to make, actually, what kind of designs you want to make. So really get specific here. And then of course, write it all down. And my favorite thing when I start a new project is to share it with someone and make them your accountability buddy. It's really easy to, lose track of your own progress if you're the only person that you're accountable to. So share it with someone and have them help you stay on track. So overlapping with this phase is the phase of gathering resources and recruiting your team. So if you need to raise funds, now's the time to start figuring out how to make those funds, how to raise those funds and actually do it. Find the right tools that you might need. If you need equipment, if you need a space, maybe you need transportation. If you're giving a lecture, at your school, you need to arrange transportation for your lecturer. So these kinds of details. And then, of course, you want to bring in the right people. You want to bring in your team. You want to bring in a partner. You want to hire a specialist if you need to hire a specialist to do a particular part of the job. So maybe you want to bring in a mentor to keep you on track. Finally, it's time to actually execute your plan. So you want to act and react. So you want to obviously act on your plan and stick to your plan, but be willing to be flexible, because sometimes plans don't go 100% as we plan them. So monitor your plan, manage your team, be flexible, be willing to change your plan. And then of course, be persistent. This is something I think that often gets overlooked. We try something, we don't get a response, and then we stop trying. So persistence is a key element, and just remember that you're the driver of your plan. And also do not forget to follow up thank yous, pay your invoices, dot your I's, cross your T's, and keep a record of what you've done so you can recreate it or share it out. Okay. So let's talk now a little bit, let's shift gears, and I want to talk to you a little bit about International Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day, which is coming up. It's this Wednesday, September 15th. And this is a great example also of us at MDF and our partners taking a really big problem, flipping it into a goal, and then creating projects from it. So this is a global movement with quite a broad scope. I'll give you a little bit of background. Our amazing CEO, Tanya Stevenson, alongside a handful of other international DM-focused organizations from around the world, including Japan, the Netherlands, and the UK, all came together to declare September 15th International Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day. And they did this February of this year on Rare Diseases Day. So this is the very first year that we're doing this. And it was born from this problem. Not enough people know what myotonic dystrophy is, and there's not enough awareness in the world about what it is. And so we've flipped this into a goal, which is to increase awareness of myotonic dystrophy. And again, this is a very broad goal. So we broke it down into a few smaller goals. So first, we want to raise public awareness and increase education amongst our community and the people that we can reach now. We wanted to increase clinician awareness, and we heard in our chat about people, having goals of wanting to to have their clinicians be more educated and their specialists be more educated. So this is a really important goal. And then also our third goal was to coordinate with other DM-focused organizations around the world so that we could create this global community and cultivate this global community of myotonic dystrophy individuals and families and organizations. And of course, we wanted to empower our community to actually be able to go out and create their own projects and be their own advocates. And then we wanted to also advocate to our government. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that we've created from these goals. Of course, all of these resources that I'm about to share are on our website, and it's myotonic.org/International DM Day. And this has got all these resources that we've created. So please do visit this after the session or after today. And again, I'm going to go over what's on there, but know that that's there for you. So this first goal, raising general awareness about DM, we created a social media campaign. So we've been posting social media posts over the last month about DM and sharing facts. So if you follow our social media, you've been seeing those. We created a one-page DM fact sheet, which I'm really proud of. We compiled research and condensed research from our amazing researchers in our community and created a one-page sheet. And this is a printable sheet or a PDF that you can share digitally. And this breaks down myotonic dystrophy and the facts about it into one page so it can be shared, alleviate the burden of having to be a DM expert everywhere you go. And then we also created the window sign campaign where family, friends, local businesses can post signs in their windows, at their desks, at their, anywhere that that people can see, and people can publicly show their support. And we created also template letters for people to be able to share this and ask for support in their community. We also created some awareness t-shirts and mugs, made some swag. So the store is posted there if you wanna buy some things, and they'll hopefully prompt some conversations about myotonic dystrophy. Wear them to the supermarket, wear them to the gym. Okay. Of course, this goal of raising awareness amongst clinicians. I see Mike has posted the store in the chat. Thanks, Mike. So raising awareness amongst clinicians, again, this is a huge goal for us, and I know it's really important to our community, as we've heard today. So we've done some medical association outreach, thinking about how we can get our clinical care guidelines and our toolkits out to the most amount of people. So we've targeted some specific medical associations and asked them to share out our resources on their newsletters and their web pages, and we're hoping to get those shared out on the 15th. We've also partnered with Story Booth, who actually have a booth at our conference. So they're independently operating, and they collect stories from patients about their patient experience and share those and make them available to clinicians. So this is a really good way for you guys to contribute also to the body of knowledge about the DM experience. And then our goal of coordinating with other DM-focused organizations. When we first created the International Awareness Day, like I said, we came together with a bunch of international DM-focused organizations in this global alliance. There are now, I think, almost 50. We had 3 join today, actually. So almost 50 organizations, companies from around the world. And we've come together over the last few months, and we've actually been holding meetings to try to, share resources, share ideas. And since this is the first year we're doing this, really trying to learn from each other and get some synergy. And then you heard this morning from Alexandra LaBeouf, who was our international logo contest design winner. We opened this contest up to the public to create a logo for this brand new day. And Alex was able to receive votes from over 20 countries and create this design that will now represent International DM Awareness Day. Of course, we want to empower you, our community, to do your own advocacy, and you can partake in almost all of the things I've already shared, but these things are really generated for you to be able to make a ripple in your own community. So from the social media posts that we've created, we've actually made toolkits. So social media toolkits, and they're downloadable, and you can download them from our website and then actually post out the same post that we've been posting. So you don't have to, bear the burden of creating all these informational posts. Again, that one-page DM fact sheet, which you can take with you to school, to work, just have in your back pocket. We've created events in a box. So if you want to host a fundraiser, you can visit this events in a box, and it actually breaks down how, the steps to create your own fundraiser, a walkathon, a roll-a-thon. And then some templates for you to lobby your local monuments to be lit up in green. No, it's a little bit late now to get that done for the 15th, but there are some templates for you to try that. And in the UK, there are, I think, roughly 30 that are going to be lit up in green on the 15th from Cure DM and their work in the UK. So it's really exciting. And then finally, political advocacy has been a big goal of ours. So you heard from Senator Kaine the first day of the conference. He has co-sponsored a very important and exciting resolution to declare September 15th Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day. And we worked with some key partners, including some of the panelists that we have today, to bring this to the Senate, and got support also from Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota to co-sponsor this bill. We've also created a letter writing campaign, and this is something that you all can participate in, and I'll circle back to this later, but you can actually campaign your senators to also co-sponsor this bill and make sure it gets passed on Wednesday or before Wednesday. And the more support we have, the better. And then finally, we shared our resolution, Senate resolution template with our Alliance members, and actually have now the Manitoba, Canada province having declared September 15th Myotonic Dystrophy Awareness Day. And MDF definitely cannot take full credit for that. We've had one of our wonderful panelists, Teresa Buffone, captaining that project alongside a couple of other Canada-based advocacy and patient advocacy organizations. So these are these two resolutions. Here's the Senate resolution. Here is the Manitoba proclamation. And this is a good transition for me to pass the mic over. We're going to hear from our community panelists. We've got Teresa Buffone, who's based in Ottawa, Canada, and we've got David Brand and his daughter, Lauren Brand Zabezhinsky, and we're going to hear from all three of them about their stories and the advocacy projects that they've worked on. They both have worked on parts of the International DM Awareness Day political advocacy portion. So we'll hear about those projects and more. And I want you to become inspired by their projects and their initiatives, and I'm sure that you will. So we'll go ahead and hear from the three of them. And so I'm going to first go ahead and introduce Miss Teresa Buffone. And we've got some of our panelists popping up here. So you can see Lauren and David up here. And we're also going to bring in Miss Teresa Buffone. So I'm going to give her a quick introduction, and then I'll pass the mic over to her. So let me pull this up here. So the formidable Ms. Teresa Buffone is a very accomplished DM advocate with a long resume of successes, but I'm going to try to cover a few here. She's the co-founder and current MDF support group facilitator for Ottawa, the Ottawa area of Canada. The support group was first set up in 2013 in collaboration with Kelly Lundy. Teresa is also a former program manager at Health Canada, where she delivered national compensation programs to Canadians, and a past member of the City of Ottawa Health and Social Service Advisory Committee. Teresa is currently a member of the NMD4C, which is the Neuromuscular Disease Network for Canada. She brings knowledge about myotonic dystrophy to act as a knowledge user and facilitate knowledge transfer to patients. As a family, after a family diagnosis of DM with 11 people affected in her family, including her late husband and her 2 adult children, Teresa attended numerous MDF annual conferences to gather as much knowledge as possible and raise awareness about DM and the need for active care management, an active care management clinic for affected patients in the Ottawa area, and that clinic opened in May of 2018. Since 2012, Teresa has disseminated invaluable MDF anesthesia guidelines and DM consensus care guidelines, and she's lobbied to local, provincial, and national lawmakers to secure better care and services for DM patients. In 2015, she also received the MDF US Advocate Award for her efforts to support Canadian families living with myotonic dystrophy. So we're going to hear from her now. And Teresa, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to you. Teresa, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Kate, for the introduction. It was really nice to hear all about advocacy and laid out in such a clear format. And basically, this is what I have been doing since 2012. I started going to the sessions, to the conferences in the US. And every time I came back from the conferences, I would write up an action plan, because there was a lot of information that needed to be distributed, and not only to clinicians, but also to patients. So I was writing up an action plan. What am I going to do, and how am I going to do it, and who am I going to approach? So I decided I would take on it's a humongous responsibility, but it's also very rewarding when you see action being taken by certain hospitals or organizations. So I noticed that there were obviously big gaps in myotonic dystrophy knowledge and treatment, both by the clinicians and patients. I was informed by a certain family that they were told about their diagnosis written on a corner piece of a piece of paper, that they had myotonic dystrophy and no more than that. So that kind of got me going, and I said, well, this is not really, it's not a good thing. We need more information. So I was also looking at the need for an active care management clinic because people who had visual symptoms, in other words, they had a gait, they would be given appointments, but someone who didn't have a gait problem or a visible problem, such as a GI problem or a cognitive problem, they would not necessarily be getting the attention by the neurologist. So I felt that there was a gap there, that they should be, everybody should receive the same quality of care and be seen on an annual basis. And I was convinced that we needed an active care management clinic where people would be seen on an annual basis, and interventions applied on a timely basis. So I decided I would do that. And I also needed to get the anesthesia guidelines, as you mentioned earlier, and the consensus care guidelines, both to hospitals and to individuals within the support group. To me, advocacy was like putting your ideas on a canvas, so to speak, and writing up an action plan, taking it in small bits, small bites, and then plan your meetings and the action you're going to be taking. So with that in mind, I proceeded on with the first Canadian support group, which was established. We had our first meeting on November 2013. I had written at this point my journey in terms of where I had come from with gathering information. And I had mentioned it to the MDF Foundation, and someone linked me with another family and in Ottawa, and we established the support group. And we had actually quite a good success because we had people from the surrounding areas, not only from Ottawa, but other cities coming, taking an hour and a half, 2-hour drive to come to our meeting. That's how hungry they were for information on myotonic. They had not been given information from their clinicians or neurologists. Everybody was in the dark about this genetic disease. So after we established the clinic, the support group, I then looked at, well, we need to really put the nuts and bolts to establishing a clinic for myotonic dystrophy. So initially, I had communicated with the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario because that's where they had the genetic testing done. And I didn't know where to start. So I went there. I said, look, I wrote a letter and I said, I'd like to meet with you folks. We need a clinic. I identified our needs, and they said after 6 months, they communicated with me and they said, yes, we will have a clinic but only for children, because as a children's hospital, they only treat them until they're 18 years old. And then they indicated to me in that letter saying, we would support you in your efforts to establish an adult clinic. So that was the proof that I need, not the proof, but the impetus for me to go further and approach the Ottawa Hospital to have a clinic for adults, given the fact that I was given the support from CHIO. So what I did before meeting with the hospital administrators, the CEOs, I decided to research and find out in Canada and in the US, how many had clinics of this nature established, and what was their modus operandi. Then I communicated with neurologists, cardiologists. I sent them letters, pulmonary respirologist, a physiatrist, ophthalmologist. I said, look, I'm interested in having a clinic established for myotonic dystrophy because obviously there were lapses in knowledge, and I identified exactly what I was searching for. Would you be interested? I asked them, would you be interested to participate in the clinic? And they all resounded a yes response. So I was really pleased that they were all interested in joining or establishing the clinic. So with this kind of information, I then asked the Ottawa Hospital CEO and management executive for a meeting for me to present my proposal. At the end of the meeting, they said yes, we would establish a clinic for myotonic. Later on, they said we will include other neuromuscular diseases such as Duchenne. So this made me very happy that I was able to get a clinic established. So finally, in May of 2018, the clinic opened, the Neuromuscular Clinical Research Center at the Civic Hospital. I was ecstatic by all of this, by the way. Then in January of 2020, I was asked to represent the patient voice on the Neuromuscular Disease Network for Canada, since I had already, established my name recognition that I was a fighter for myotonic dystrophy. So this was a grant that was given out by the Canadian Institute of Health Research and Muscular Dystrophy Canada. It was a 3-year funding program. So the aim of this network is to improve clinical care, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Increase research and treatment, training and education, educating the next generation of clinicians, biobanking, registry, having a patient portal, and clinical trials. So all of these elements are under the Neuromuscular Network for Canada. So we have achieved quite a bit in terms of making the disease known to the area in Ottawa, and as well as across Canada, because the anesthesia guidelines were given to all provinces. And as a matter of fact, it was presented at a anesthesiology conference in Toronto and given out or put on a resource desk for people to take home. And we're also looking at the need for information on a person's hospital record. Every time my son would go into the hospital, and he's been there quite often for the same reason, I always had to bring my toolkit with me. I never knew if he needed surgery or not. And a lot of the doctors didn't know about myotonic dystrophy or how to deal or how to address his GI issues. So I had the idea, I said, every time he goes into the hospital, what happens if I'm not able to be there with him? This is very scary because they wanted to do surgery on him at all time. And I knew exactly that general anesthesia was a very difficult product to be given to my husband. He had to be resuscitated a couple of times because they gave him general anesthesia, not knowing the effects. So I was afraid of this for my son. Anyway, I decided then to write up a form and have it available on his hospital chart that he had myotonic dystrophy, and he couldn't have general anesthesia, and also there were certain opiates that were difficult for him to come out of. So when I met with another family in 2019, another DM family who was just recently diagnosed, I mentioned this to this family, and fortunately, he was an IT specialist who worked at the Ottawa hospital. And I asked him, I said, this is what I would like. This is an idea. I would like if this is a doable project or not. And I explained to him what I've just mentioned. And he said, yes. He says, we do have electronic records at the hospital. And this is a doable activity that can be, not activity, it's a doable project that can be undertaken and make this designation on the hospital records. So it took a little bit of time, but definitely it was successful. It was approved, and it's now implemented in June of this year in the Ottawa Hospital, which is the main hospital in Ottawa. And if it proves successful, it will be introduced in other hospitals across Canada who are engaged or who have electronic records keeping. So this EPIC function will not only identify the person's myotonic dystrophy, it cautions the use of anesthesia and certain drugs, and refers the doctors to the care guidelines, which are so important. So it's serving an additional purpose to have this EPIC red flag, as I call it, identified on hospital records. So that was a very exciting success story when I heard the fact that it was finally adopted. Then I decided, when I was approached by the Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation in February about the global awareness, I immediately communicated this particular awareness campaign to Muscular Dystrophy Canada and the Neuromuscular Disease Network for Canada to see if they would like to join. They both said yes, they would join, and I proceeded on writing a letter with all three of the three of us, myself, Muscular Dystrophy Canada, and the network, wrote up a letter meant for provincial ministers of health and the Minister of Health, asking for awareness of September 15. And I was astounded to see that the province of Manitoba on July the 27th proclaimed a Global Awareness Day of myotonic muscular dystrophy. Anyway, I've done quite a few things in regards to myotonic dystrophy, but there's still an awful lot of advocacy that needs to be done. And talking about the Global Awareness Campaign, I had some funds that were donated to me. I decided to take out an advertisement in our local paper, and it's going to be appearing on September the 15th. And it has the Global Awareness logo, as well as the logo of Muscular Dystrophy Canada and the logo for the network. So this will be appearing on September the 15th. So it's not much, but at least it's something to make aware the citizens of the city aware that myotonic dystrophy is is a rare disease and we need to support. Now, there's also other activities planned by Muscular Dystrophy Canada on that day. And so I'm looking forward to seeing those. In closing, I couldn't have done all of this without the support of Myotonic Muscular Foundation. They provided all of the guidelines and the support that I needed in order for me to do what I have done. Also, advocacy, when I started on this, I came across a book by Dwayne Dwyer, The Power of Intention. And I looked upon one of the chapters and I happened to see this quotation and I said, this is exactly what has happened to me. And I'll read to you the quote. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. Unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. And that's exactly what has happened to me since 2012. All of these things have popped up and I've addressed them to the best way I was able to. But definitely it takes commitment and planning and following through. And it's everything that Kate has mentioned in the beginning of her session. Thank you very much for listening to my long-winded presentation. And good luck to each and every one of you. It's very rewarding if you do undertake such activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was so wonderful to hear from you. And you're such an inspiration with all the work that you've done, and very excited to see what the ad looks like in your local paper that you put out on the 15th. So make sure to send us a picture of that.
I will.
Great. So we'll have a chance to hear again from Teresa. At the end, we'll do a quick Q&A portion. We're going to hear now from the Brands, David Brand and Lauren Brand Zabezhinsky. They are father and daughter, DM advocates, and MDF community members. I'll go ahead and introduce them. David is a retired business executive and president and CEO of DMB Strategic, a consulting and advisory group focused on domestic and international affairs and philanthropy. David has a wide circle of influence, including Jewish and non-Jewish leaders, political officials, and both religious and elected influencers. His granddaughter, Jackie, was born with congenital myotonic dystrophy type 1, and David discovered that his side of the family was the carriers of this disease. Lauren is David's daughter and the mother of Jackie, who is now 3 years old, who was born with CDM. Lauren is a speech and language pathologist and a business owner of LB Speech in Minneapolis. Lauren coordinates her daughter's medical care and advocates for children with special needs as both a mother and a professional clinician. With Jackie's diagnosis, Lauren discovered that she too was the carrier of this disease. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over. We're going to hear first from Lauren about her story and a little bit of her advocacy work, and then we'll pass it over to her father, David. So Lauren, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I was thinking about a common quote that, or meme that I see on social media so often: how it started, ... how it's going. So I am going to share exactly that with all of you. At about 28 weeks gestation in my pregnancy, I noticed that I was retaining a lot more amniotic fluid. I was measuring a lot bigger, and thought that it was time to bring this attention to my obstetrician. His answer was, it could be something, it could be nothing. Okay, so I also noted towards the end that there was significant less movement overall that I was feeling. And the day that I went in for my scheduled cesarean, Jackie was born not doing a whole lot. Respiratory distress, very low tone, almost like rag doll, kind of is how we describe it in my field. So on went our beginning of our hospital stay in the NICU at Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. It was awkward because I was usually on the other side of the curtain, especially in the NICU, where I've done several years of work with families who have babies born with swallowing disorders or premature babies. So I was on the other side of the curtain, which was very challenging. The doctors often said to me, it's so hard because you know too much. And it was true. But luckily I knew what she needed and I got started right away. Jackie was not swallowing at birth as well. So that's what I do for a living. I teach babies how to swallow, and I taught Jackie how to swallow. And with a lot of pushback of, maybe you should just get her home and we can put a gastrostomy tube and it'll, you can go on with life. I said, Jackie and I are a great team. We can do this. Just don't kick me out of the hospital. And 2 months later, we were home. She was gaining weight and nursing exclusively. We did not have a diagnosis until about a year later. We went to go see a neuromuscular specialist here in Minneapolis, Dr. Randall Richardson at Gillette Hospital. And he took one look at Jackie and he said, it's either this or that, go get a blood test. And he nailed it. As a speech pathologist and a mother, I often wear very different hats for my daughter. But I've also been fortunate because I, again, have known how to be proactive with her, how to be her advocate. And, everything from early intervention through the school system, coming to our home twice a month, private therapy, all 3 disciplines, speech, OT, PT, and also taking her down to South Florida, where I used to work in a private practice. And my mentors there at Pediatric Therapy Associates are world renowned in the area of pediatric neuromuscular therapy. And they and the folks at Gillette, our therapists, have worked wonders for Jackie, and she continues to do well and make progress, thank God. And I knew that I had that part under control. After the acceptance of what we were dealing with, I needed to move forward. And I wanted to get involved. So the first thing I did was I had a conversation with my OB and our neuromuscular specialist, because I wanted to get some more information on, I was tested because I am Jewish. I was tested for all sorts of things before I wanted to start a family. And I wanted to know why isn't that available for people who could potentially have some rare disease like a repeat disorder, just like myotonic dystrophy is. So I wanted to sort of look into that a little bit more and find out, how can a family get pre-screened for a repeat disorder prior to getting pregnant? Because no family, and I know that there are many out there, but no family should have to find out like we did. So that was the first thing that I wanted to spend time looking into. And next I heard about the DM advocacy team, and I knew that this was another way for my husband Leo and I and my father to get involved and do something to make myotonic dystrophy aware to the public and do something for our community. So I had the privilege in the past of meeting with Senator Klobuchar and her staff, discussing a completely different topic, the US-Israel relationship, and advocating for that. I knew that I could come to Senator Klobuchar and her staff with this as well. She herself is a champion for rare disease, personally with her daughter and professionally. So I have to say it was the easiest call, one of the easiest calls I've ever had to make. Leo and I had a conversation with her staff member who handles all of her rare disease. I believe she sits on the rare disease caucus, if I'm not mistaken. And it was kind of a no-brainer for us and a no-brainer for them. And we asked for her to co-sponsor this bill, this resolution that Senator Kane had so honorably taken on. And it was a yes. Jackie continues to make amazing gains, and I am so grateful for the community, this community, the Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation. Last year was my first conference, and I was terrified because I knew that if I joined this conference, that this was real. Sorry, my family is laughing at me right now because this is totally expected. It is real, but it's our life, it's our reality, and we're dealing with a smile on our faces. And Jackie is incredible. And thank you so much for being here. And Dad, you can take it from here.
So I'm not sure if we're, Kate, are we all square? There we are.
Yeah.
First of all, let me just say that, Teresa, you are incredible. Really, really remarkable. And so thank you for the thousands and thousands of families to whom you've advocated for, Teresa, whether it's in Canada or anywhere in the world. Your leadership is remarkable, and it's a debt that we'll never be able to pay back to you, but thank you, number one. And to Kate and Mike, you all are doing an incredible job. And thank you for this opportunity to be here today. There's one shout out that I think is really important when we talk about advocacy, and that's a gentleman who we've gotten to know named Todd Stone in Richmond. I'm not sure if Todd is on today or not, and I'll get back to Todd in a minute. But Lauren, you know, it's for all of us who are parents on this call. It's incredible. I've always said more amazing than our 3 grandchildren are watching our 2 daughters become mothers. I think that's even as miraculous as anything. And so I think that that's really been a remarkable part of this, and watching Lauren and Leo and our 5-year-old grandson, Eli, Jackie's older brother, the care and the intensity and the love is really pretty remarkable. But Lauren covered all that, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right down to the advocacy. Kate, I'm not sure how much time we have, so I'll try to get right to it. When we heard about the Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation, and we heard last year about the conference, as a family, we are very proud to advocate for things that are close to us. And we believe that you can make a difference. Let's just start with that. Every person on this call can make a difference. And as you can see, one of my fourth bullets, all politics is local. I've been doing political advocacy work on a number of different issues, as I'm sure many of us had. And politicians and influencers, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do. So demystify the relationship, because we all know people outside our spheres of influence and even inside, and anybody can get to anybody. And I think that's really an important lesson for us to learn here. We were fortunate, our family's been fortunate to have a wonderful relationship with Tim Kaine ever since he was mayor of Richmond, Virginia. Followed his career through an incredible steward as governor, stewardship of governor of Virginia. And when we heard about this, I was unaware of Tim's involvement with myotonic dystrophy, had been to his office, had discussed some very, very significant issues. And I would tell you that our last conversation together in Tim's office was not a very pleasant one, as we were diametrically opposed on a very important national security issue. But what's amazing is that when it came to myotonic dystrophy, it was a no-brainer. And Todd Stone, an attorney, a wonderful attorney from Richmond, has two sons with myotonic dystrophy. Todd had known Tim for many years. And so together, Todd and myself and Lauren and the entire myotonic dystrophy team came together and said, well, let's go ahead and approach Tim's office and see if he would advocate and put forth a resolution, because Tim had been a member of the board. And of course, the initial pushback we got was, well, you know, he ran for vice president, and you can only imagine how many people are asking Tim to sponsor and advocate for everything. And so Todd and I agreed with Kevin, who's the chief lobbyist for myotonic dystrophy. We said, wait a minute, he's been there before. He can't say no. He simply can't say no. And guess what? We're not going to take no for an answer. And yes, we have supported his efforts, and therefore that does get you access, but it's not about any kind of contribution. We all have the biggest key to accessibility that we need, and that is we all vote. And I think that that is a very, very real tool that needs to be in the toolbox of advocacy when it comes to influencing members of the body politic. So we had a really big reality check on our part. Certainly on the family side, Lauren covered it. I won't go into it. I will only say that we learned a lot. I was shocked that I was indeed the carrier. And I'm the only surviving member of my family, unfortunately. My mom and dad and brother have all predeceased. So I had no one to ask in terms of whether or not this was in fact true, but the blood test came back and it was what it was. And so I've got to go through a yearly test with a heart monitor, not such a big deal compared to others for sure. But I was cautioned about making sure that I let, anytime I had surgery, that I let the anesthesiologist know, and I was prepared to lay out this whole story about myotonic dystrophy. And I was really very pleased to say, we know it, it's in your chart, we've got you covered, we're well aware of it. And so to Teresa's point about advocating for clinicians and educating clinicians, I was really, really glad to see that they were on the ball there in that regard. So we spoke to Tim, we pitched Tim's team, and it became pretty evident at first that, well, we're going to review it. And then Todd had some sidebar conversations with Tim's chief of staff, who's a great, great fellow. Mike Henry is an awesome public servant, always was willing to listen, and their legislative aid for health issues was fantastic. Spoke to Tim as well and to Mike again, and we got the good news that, of course, Tim wants to do this. At that point, my incredible daughter and her husband had known Amy Klobuchar for quite a while. Lauren especially had a great relationship with her. advocating, like she said, on a different, completely different issue. And Lauren said, no brainer. And I think that that's the same as we have found with our youngest daughter, who recently gave birth to an incredible 2-month-old now, I think, or close to maybe 10 weeks, I think. They live in New York. And Jenna too got tested, sure enough, a carrier. And so they took the necessary precautions to assure that they were aware of everything. And luckily, their son has been born healthy and without this issue. And someone brought it up before, and I'm so proud of both my girls in that Jenna and her husband are now looking into opportunities where they can potentially fund young couples in New York who don't know about the test and maybe can't afford the test. And so we're blessed. My wife Bonnie and I are really, really blessed with 2 girls, 2 daughters, amazing husbands who really understand that it's an obligation that we are proud to accept, to advocate, whether it's on the political side or advocate on the local clinical side in that regard. And in due course, trust that our son Benjamin, who's the oldest of the 3, will, when the time comes for him, will do the same. But the one thing I want to say as a closing message, because I know time may be running short, is this advocacy doesn't need to only exist on the federal level, whether it's Canadian, whether it's the United States, but there are school boards to make sure that our kids, they're not looked upon as having some strange, weird thing going on with their teachers, school boards, city councils. And remember, it's city councils that become the minor leagues, no bad inference intended, for regional and national politics. So to educate members of a city council, to educate a mayor, that will come down the road many-fold in helping us make this awareness there. It is in its embryonic stage, but when you take a look, and I've been involved, and many people are aware of it, in the Stand Up to Cancer advocacy and program. And my organization, we were major funders at the beginning of that very first night that Stand Up to Cancer went on national television on all 3 networks. There's nothing stopping the myotonic dystrophy community from reaching goals like that. It just depends on us. It's not going to happen, as Teresa and Lauren said. It's not going to come from anywhere else. It's got to come from the people who are the most affected. And just remember that our letters do get read. I was a Senate staffer many years ago in Capitol Hill in DC. And believe me, these letters that we write, the emails that we write, they get read. They get discussed in policy meetings with the member of Congress. So don't just think you're going to write a letter, send an email, and it's going to fall to the wayside. But again, I'll end with that, and just to say thank you to all of you for the time, and open it up to questions. I guess, Kate, turn it back to you and we'll go from there.
So we've got a couple of questions already from the audience. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Miss Teresa Buffone. And okay, we're going to go ahead and take some questions here. I'm going to ask them to all of our panelists. So first question is, what can you do to raise awareness or do advocacy if you don't have a lot of energy? This is a really good question.
Can I take a shot at that first off?
Please, David.
I think depending on a person's individual situation, whether it's energy or finances, I think the internet has solved some of that problem. I believe to start a Facebook group, even amongst your own community, I think to begin to write to and send the one-pager out, to send the Senate resolution out, to send the Canadian resolution out to members of Congress in your local district or to your city council, I think is clearly, remember, on the internet, no one knows who you are, how much money you have, how much time you have, or how much energy you have. That may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing. So I think I would offer that up as one major opportunity in a case like that.
Any insights, Teresa?
Well, it's very hard because if you don't have the energy, or if you don't have all of your faculties with you, it's very hard to sit and write a letter or even start where you want to head. I'm finding myself personally at this point in time, I also have Parkinson's disease. What I was able to do almost 10 years ago, I can't do that anymore. So I'm going to have to, at one point, withdraw from some of the work that I'm doing. So I can understand perfectly where this person is coming from, because that's how I feel at this point. But you can do a little bit. If you can write a letter, send an email, as David was mentioning, that yes, people do read your emails and letters that you write. And even talking to your own physician about it, bringing your copies of the toolkit or the symptoms, myotonic symptoms chart, bring that with you. I mean, you're doing advocacy because you're telling the clinician or the physician, you know, what myotonic dystrophy is. So it doesn't have to be a big elaborate plan. You can do things, small things that you can do. So don't worry if you can't undertake a big project. Do something that will help you even accomplish and say, I've done something about it. I've sent an email. So it doesn't have to be elaborate.
Thanks, Teresa. That's a great point. And to mirror both of those points, and David's as well, we've got all these resources that we've shared out today, and we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to write to your senators and to participate in this activism. So try poking around there for something that fits your energy level. We've got another question. How do I begin advocating for an active care management clinic at my local hospital? Who should I reach out to first? Teresa, you might want to take the lead on this one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you. I think if you have a neurologist at this point in time, I would communicate with the neurologist and tell them that, you know, exactly what myotonic dystrophy, the different symptoms, and that people need to be looked at or followed through annually, both from a cardiac point of view, respiratory issues, etc. So you have to convince someone of a need for a need to make things better. So once you've gotten someone who's interested in your idea, communicate to find out who the CEO of the hospital is, and write a letter and explain to them and saying, look, I have myotonic dystrophy. These are my symptoms. My neurologist can only deal with X number of issues, but there's also pulmonary issues that will eventually pop up. I may need a pacemaker. So we need an active care management clinic, because of, you know, it's not just one issue that myotonic affects, it affects your whole system. So you have to bring about documentation to explain myotonic dystrophy, and they will buy into that, you know, and don't give up. don't take a no for an answer. Continue on and reach out to other a respirologist, a neurologist, a cardiologist. I mean, this is what I did, and they all agreed that there needs to be a more cohesive level of care for myotonic dystrophy patients. And this it's not a one-time, this is continuous. It goes from the time you're diagnosed until the end. And symptoms are much more grievous as time goes on. So you have to bring those points to their attention, and they will see through that.
Thank you, Teresa, for that. And looks like we're just running up to the end of our time for our session. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to our amazing panelists for being here, sharing their insights. You can see their profiles on the MDF conference website. And just want to say thank you so much to everyone. So please enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kate.
you all. Thank you.